In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the SEIKO Prospex SPB237, and I love this watch. Now, this isn't a watch that I expected to own. This was actually a gift from my wife and my mother-in-law for my 31st birthday, but I was actually the one to choose this watch. We walked into a SEIKO boutique and I tried on a few different watches. I thought that, maybe I would like a turtle, a patty turtle, something like that, maybe a alpinist, but then I tried on this watch and it really drew me in. To be honest, this wasn't even on my radar. I didn't know anything about this watch, but this is one of those things where I just saw it, I tried it on, and I fell in love with this watch. So I'm super happy to have this watch, and also thankful to my wife and my mother-in-law for picking this up for me for my 31st birthday. So before we get into what I like about this watch, let's talk a little bit about the watch itself, some of its specifications, and what this watch is about. So the SEIKO SPB237 is a part of SEIKO's Captain Willard line of watches, and that is in reference to the watch that Captain Willard wore in the movie Apocalypse Now. Admittedly, I haven't seen that movie, so that's not really one of the reasons why I was drawn to this watch or why I like this watch, but that's just something to note, and that's also one of the reasons why these watches are popular. It's because of that sort of movie reference and the historical, the historical value of this watch. Now, this one in particular is a little bit different from even the more basic ones because it has this sort of textured gray dial. It has that semi-aged looking lume. It has a lighter bezel in terms of the markers on the bezel. It has different colored text on the dial, all of which I think make this watch very, very nice. Some of the key specifications of this watch are that it is around 43 millimeters in diameter, and from lug tip to lug tip, it is 46 millimeters, which is, again, one of those things that I think make this watch very attractive to a lot of people. And that's because even though it's a big watch, its short lug to lug measurement makes it easy to wear for most wrist sizes, even smaller wrist sizes. I consider my wrist to be small, medium to medium at best, and the watch wears very well. I don't think this angle does it justice. It makes it look a little bit thicker and bigger, and also that NATO makes it look thicker, but this watch wears very, very well. In terms of the movement, this has the 6R35 movement. Now, again, admittedly, I am not a movement guy, but from what I know about this movement, it's a movement that SEIKO puts in a lot of their watches. It's not their entry-level movement. It's sort of their mid-tier mass market movement, and they do that because it's got the functions that fit a lot of watches. It has a date function, it has hacking seconds, and it is a windable watch, a hand windable watch, and it's very robust. From the 3 weeks that I've had it, it's been very, very accurate, and for me, that's all I really need to know. That's what makes a movement great, and that's why I think it fits this watch very well. In terms of what comes with this watch, as you can see, it's in the green NATO strap, which has this pattern, which is supposed to be sort of a traditional Japanese woven pattern. And it not only comes in this green one, but it also comes with a gray NATO strap as well. So it comes with two straps, no bracelet, but I asked the guy from the SEIKO boutique and he said you can easily order an OEM bracelet for this watch, or I guess you can also look at third-party manufacturers for bracelets if you want more robust bracelets. So now let's get into what makes this watch a little bit different from the other Captain Willard watches. The first thing you'll note is the dial. Now, this camera angle doesn't do it justice, but it has this dark gray dial with a light texture, and I think that's very important to note because a lot of the pictures that you see online make the texture look very extreme, but when you see this in person, it's a very light texture, and when you look at it from even just the regular distance, from like a wrist distance away, you don't even notice the texture. It's only when you look into or close to the dial that you see that texture, and I think that's a very nice touch. I think it gives the dial a little bit more character, a little bit more life, a little bit more warmth, and that I think is one of the overall themes of this watch. It's a very warm looking watch, and I think it's because of a lot of the design choices that were used for this watch. So apart from that dial, we have the lume markers, which are a little bit on the off-white side, so they have that almost aged look. But to me at least, it doesn't look too crazy in terms of the vintage feel. I'm personally not the biggest fan of watches that have too much of that vintage look to them. I think this has the perfect amount. And to me at least, it's not so obvious that this is sort of that vintage look. If we go out to the bezel, this is an aluminum bezel. It is not a ceramic bezel. And it has that lume pip on the top. But if you can see closely, the numbers and the markers are not white like they would be on a regular watch. They have sort of this metallic gray with a hint of brownish tone to it, which again lessens that contrast between the black and the markers that I think make this watch a little bit more interesting. And overall, this watch has lower contrast than, you know, a standard watch with pure white markers, pure white lume, which again, overall adds to that warmth of this watch. If you look at the dial, the SEIKO text, the Prospex text, the automatic, and the Divers 200 text are also not white. They're more similar to the numbers and the markings on the dive bezel. They have that metallic look, but they are less of that brown tone and more like silver. All those different design decisions, I think, come together to create this very, very nice package. It's not overly vintage, but it still has that nice warmth and those small details that make this watch feel really special. So that's really it for my review. I don't have anything else to say. Maybe I might come up with a follow-up review in the future. I've just, you know, started wearing this watch. It's less than a month old, so it might just be my honeymoon period, but this is one of those watches that I think you really need to see in person, and I think a lot of people will fall in love with this watch.